we're always a little bit behind because it's already up, but it doesn't show it's up over there. And hello, hello, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We are so happy that you're here. This is CSI, Create a Source of Inspiration, approximately a 30-minute talk to help uplift and inspire you today. And we are just so happy that you're here either live or when you see the replay. And today, we have an absolutely wonderful guest with us, Ian Hay. I'll explain a little bit more about him in a moment, but we have our beautiful anchor, Colleen Burrell, who will be assisting. If you would love to put a comment in the chat, we have learned that we have to respond while it's live because we do lose you after the recording's over. So still learning some stuff on YouTube. Thank you very much, and please be patient, but we are so thrilled you were here. Now with Ian, he's a very interesting, unusual individual. How many people do you know that has to do with security, national security? How about national emergency situations? Okay, so you can imagine how stressful, everybody has heard of FEMA and things like that. Um, but could you imagine being thrown in the fire for being a senior Homeland Security Analyst? I mean, hello. So, Ian, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so thrilled that you are here with us today. Looking
Great
Ian's
to be here.
lightsaber.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, we'd love to have you here. So, as I ask all of my guests, the very simple question, because we want to open up everybody's perception that you don't have to be meditated out into bliss to become inspired. Everything around us we can get inspired by. So, Ian, first question. What is inspiration to you?
Well, obviously, there are a number of things that I'm inspired by. And one of the first things that comes to mind is a very personal one. And so I'll bring just sort of one third woo woo impulse power.
All right.
And
I love it.
one of my most iconic, I will call mentors, even though we didn't have a direct mentoring relationship, was Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And when you hear him describing habit five of seek first to understand and then to be understood, like that chapter just really resonated with me. And so then fast forward 5 years later, after having used the planner and what have you, here I am standing in front of Dr. Stephen Covey, and I'm handing him a lighthouse, bald head lighthouse. And he laughs because we're both bald men, and he palmed my head. And of course, I had an out of body experience. And then because of that, I was invited to a program the next day, which involved the governor and Arthur Blank, who owns the Falcons, and of course, one of the great leaders of the Home Depot, excuse me. And I got to spend about 15 minutes with Dr. Covey. And I can tell you, he walked his talk. I felt on holy ground. And so for me, the most inspiring thing in anything that I do, just as we are today, is we are on holy ground. And when
Mhm.
you listen, you're listening from here, right? You're not listening here. You're not
Absolutely.
listening to respond. And so by actually dropping that listening into the gut, I felt like I was on holy ground with him and probably one of the most inspirational experiences of my life.
Wow, that's really powerful, to say the least. A little bit like that for myself is when I met Augmendino,
Mm,
the greatest salesman who ever lived. Um, Yeah, it's, when I asked Og at the time, how do you manage as much as you do? And he said it's very simple. You stay very present with exactly where and who you're with. That's all. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So that means that people can receive inspiration, not just from other people, but wherever they are in their daily life, if they just take a moment to pause, just to be present. That simple. To hear your breath, to feel your breath, to feel your body, to feel your heart, and just be for a moment. All this stuff comes in if you allow it. And so you've had a lot of stuff come in with your extensive career. Um, Plus, a little later, we'll get into it. Because of part of that, you've also put together something very clever for every home user that I definitely want you to share near the end. Um, Pretty amazing, so people can start to feel really comfortable and feel a little bit more secure. And when it comes to emergencies, so I'll let you talk about that near the end, but we do want to mention that. So, Ian, okay, so you gave us a little story of what helped inspire you. I know you've got a lot more, but for yourself personally, what is inspiration to you?
I think it's the use of our, I'm kind of borrowing a line from JFK, but it is personal and present. And that is when you are executing your personal abilities in time and space. It's when I guess I would call it, I'll look at a problem or people will describe something that's going on. I will see the solution clear as day. And I know it'll take 18 months to 3 years for everybody to get on board to get to that solution. Now, that's not everything, but just, an inspiration of vision requires some time. And so I think that is when I'm inspired, that's what I see. Or one of the things that I learned from the Virtual Coach Accelerator was actually how creative I am, right? I'm bringing all that creativity to any problem that pops up in the Homeland Security or emergency management arena. And it's that ability to tap into that creativity and see a vision that perhaps no one else sees, and to then commit oneself to that vision and then deliver it and forge it, like physically forge it out of
Mhm.
reality, is really inspiring for me.
Well, that is very, very powerful. And yes, everything actually starts from the unseen in order to bring it into the physical. So, when it comes to your ability to see and your intuition and your vision, to help the audience out there to start to connect to their own, because we all have it. It's just whether or not we're present and we're aware that we can utilize these different parts of our gifts. What would you first say to them to start to get onto this wavelength, this alignment for themselves?
I think we've already talked about it, and I love the fact that you've met Og Mandino. That is, somebody I would have loved to have met. I read that as a salesperson. I was a sales trainer at 19. And so on the one hand, we've already added a heavy dose of the first ingredient, which is we must be present in the moment. And when you're present, a whole sphere of capabilities and aptitudes open up. Second, Colleen and I have had a little chat about, all right, so how do you listen to that inner voice when it's complete chaos? So full disclosure, even as a child, I like everybody else is losing their mind. I get calm. However, it's in that ability to be present and to recognize that there's chaos going around, that you just sort of you shorten your vision into what's next. And what that will look like is if you imagine a typical emergency manager and we're in a windowless room. I did a lot of external affairs and public information alerting. So I'm in a windowless room with a bunch of TVs inside of a larger windowless room.
Okay.
And the key is you just have to be present with what's in front of you, whether it's a phone call, somebody asking for something, whether it's a disaster that you've got to contribute a piece of critical information to. Um, I think the key is being present. And while we don't, not again, one third woo impulse power, we can do a quick body scan and we'll recognize when we're out and bring that back in. The more important thing is for us to be present and see the other person and recognize where they are. And if they're chaotic, right, part of our role is to slow things down, help them get organized, recognize something. And so, a couple of examples that I wanted to share is you never want to try and train somebody when they're in chaos. So if
Oh,
someone is in chaos,
yeah.
that is not a time for input. So that number one is like let that person self-soothe. One of the ways that I manage the chaos is I always made sure that if I felt it or absolutely at lunch, I made sure I got outside and in the sunshine. Even if it's raining, I got outside, stood outside, and separated myself from the operation, right? You know, uh, I can remember this time. It was winter of 2021. COVID Omicron variant was at its peak. And
Mm.
for every medical reservist I was putting on the schedule, one was falling off sick. So it was the ultimate Sisyphus, right? You're either pushing the rock or carrying that pail that's dropping sand as you go up, and we're just refilling the same slots every day. And that went on for about 3 weeks. And I would say into the latter part of the first week, I just realized this is just what it is. And a friend of mine who served in the military, he was both enlisted and an officer called a Mustang. He told me one time, embrace the suck, right? It's just going to suck. So just embrace the suck. Don't fight it. Don't resist it because it will just start kicking your butt harder. And so I think that's another great example of what to do. Like when you find yourself in chaos or a crisis, listen to the inner voice that's quiet. Don't
Hmm.
listen to the chaotic inner voices, right? The quiet inner voice will direct you what's next.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first off, where were you when I needed you in the Northridge earthquake and that whole thing? I was the crazy person jumping out in the middle of the night, going to people and uncovering some rubble. And only after all of that, I had a concussion. Actually, I looked like a Klingon. My forehead was out here. I got hit with stuff and all that. So where were
Right.
you, Ian? I could have used your help. It was not a fun time, but yeah, it's like, okay, I got very quiet. And you know the old movie, The Poseidon Adventure, when all this was going on and the people
Oh,
are
yeah.
running and screaming? Well, I had grown men screaming through the building that was crashing around us, and the brick that should not be moving is all crunchified. And it's like, you know, no, this is the way we're going, and kick the door down and move your butt. And it's like, so, yeah, but if I didn't have that quiet voice and that clear tunnel vision, and I let all the screaming people like impact me, then I would have been quote unquote a victim of the whole situation. So yeah, we all really can cultivate that. But here's the thing, okay? Oftentimes we speak about becoming present, right? Now, because I'm an energy worker and all that stuff, and most of you people know that, and we are talking about if you resist, it keeps persisting until you just allow it to flow through you. So, all the chaos, you don't battle it and push against it because it's going to get stronger on you. But a lot of people don't understand how to become present. And they've heard me enough about all different ways that I bring them to that state. And hopefully, you guys out there, you've been practicing at least some of it. But Ian, what would you say to the audience about your way of first coming into a present state?
So before I answer that, because thank you for bringing this up, I want to use this as a brilliant training opportunity. So when you have something catastrophic like an earthquake that shakes you to the very core, pun intended, um, you have to be kind to yourself and recognize that you have a hierarchy of human systems that are designed to keep you alive, right? I'm a personal believer in the triune brain, so amygdala, medulla, cerebral cortex. The amygdala's faster, medulla's next fast, and then your thinking brain. And so I can tell you, I wasn't in the Northridge earthquake. However, the Richmond earthquake when I was in DC, and of course that's bedrock, right? California is a little looser, but bedrock shakes crazily. And so I'm in this home that was built, the Lincoln in the Lincoln era in DC, and I am surfing in the kitchen, like, whoa, can't get my feet. I'm looking for the cat so I can grab the cat, and my immediate instinct is to run. And what I can tell you as an emergency manager is that that is the worst thing to do. You want to get under something, you want to get into a doorway, and it's amazing because I had opened the back door. You know, you can have a facade come down on you, brickwork or anything else that's on your building. And I had the back door open and something stopped me. And it was the training to be like, nope. And that is the most dangerous time in any disaster, hurricane, tornado, what have you, is you'll go outside and step on a power line. So back to your question, what I do for getting present, you could do a keyword search on breath work and present in your channel, and you would and right you would see that because you're great at it. I've listened to several, and I can see what you're really helping people with. For me, you got to be kind to yourself to recognize you're going to have an immediate instinctive reaction. And what you want to do is to create space between the stimulus, right? So whether that's breathing, whether that's physically touching something, you can create a system of, looking at something else and coming back or putting your hand on your body. And so for me, that's typically what I'll do. So if I'm in a meeting and I feel a reaction to something or somebody said something charged, right, just touch a knuckle or bring your fingers together. And that's really a recognition in your body of, oh, I'm dialing in to listen.
Oh, no, that's excellent. I have a friend who's in Croatia, Nikola, and he does what they call PG tips.
Mm,
When something happens,
yeah.
just that. And nobody has to see it, but as soon as you start doing that, it calms down your nervous system. And it is true. I mean, I have a really dear friend who is a D3 detective in LA, homicide. Okay. To sit quiet and meditate, oh my God, never in a million years. But she is definitely the physical person to get centered really quick. And so she will turn around and physically, well, she's a little bit more aggressive. So it might it might be punching something or kicking a ball or something of that effect. But as an athlete, that also works beautifully because now you bring yourself into a zone. So we're really talking about for people when we talk about becoming present, like you said prior, is that we start giving space that we allow the chaos to kind of start staying out there as we give ourselves more space to come here and just be with ourselves. And it is true situations happen. we are going to first react if there are triggers, if there's such an emergency. We've never experienced it before. I've unfortunately have far too many in my life, so I kind of know what I'm going to do. And yeah, the first thing is you have to, where are you? Come back to you before you go running into a burning building.
And it's critical. And, I think one of the things is you've highlighted from your detective friend, those in those types of roles are very good at compartmentalizing
Hmm.
feeling, right? So it doesn't mean that we don't feel it, and it doesn't mean that we won't later. We just have the ability to be calm and know we're going to deal with it later. And I'll never forget, I got 30 people into a tornado shelter when we had an active tornado warning. I was at a Whole Foods. My phone goes off, right? Beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, where's the manager? Crickets, right? Thankfully, an enterprising gentleman says, I'm not the manager, but I'll go get them. So I'm like, all right, I have a deputy commander. Perfect. I then announced to the whole store, hey, we're under an active tornado warning, which means a tornado is on the ground. We want to head to the back corner of the building. Usually, retail spaces like that have a hardened area that you want people to evacuate to. So we're going and got 30 people into this tornado shelter. Of course, it's full of wine bottles up to head level. I'm losing my mind, right? They're using it as storage. And somebody's trying to bring a shopping cart in there. I'm like, I don't have space for shopping carts. I do have space for people. And the worst part of it was I'm looking out this door to the back doors open, and there's a kid in the parking lot who's going, "Oh yeah, there it is." And I'm just like, I've always wanted to see a tornado, always. But the most important thing that I learned from that episode was that I got myself into the tornado. Otherwise, I would have been putting people in there and going out and getting more. And so that's a critical thing is you got to take care of yourself first. And then the first thing I did once we had all 30 people in and secured the door is I called the former regional director, it's now called administrator of FEMA Region 4, which is the Southeast. And that's the same sort of operating area that I did when I was running Secretary Ridge's information sharing joint pilot between DHS and FBI, Mississippi to the Carolinas, Kentucky to Florida. So we get in this small space. I call my buddy John, and I'm like, John, I've got 30 souls at this crossroads. So I was telling him exactly where we physically were in case somebody had to come search for us. What can you tell him? And I just left my phone to hear so that everybody could hear him. He's like, if you're religious, this is the time. You want to bring anything that's up at a higher level, bring it down and then cover your head. And then he says, you guys are in great hands. And he hung up. And I kid you not, we all get down on the ground and beep, 30, just imagine 30 phones in an enclosed space going off. Beep, beep, there's 30 of them. And you're hearing everything, right? And
Hmm.
so it passed, everybody exited. I went to the car, I called John, and I cried. And I just got it out. Because for me, what drove me crazy is there were probably 200 people in the right shopping. Like 30 listened.
Hmm.
And so I was talking to a very dear friend of mine. She's responsible for getting me into Landmark Worldwide and the Landmark Forum. First female African American colonel in the JAG Corps, the Judge Advocate General Corps. And she goes, Ian, it's not about the people you didn't get into the tornado shelter. You got 30 people in the shelter. And
Yeah.
light bulb went off, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is like when I was down getting my gemology degree at GIA in Santa Monica, we then too had an earthquake down there. And so everybody, the instructor, everybody went nuts. And they're up and running around and I had to get everybody under the desks. It's like because the bricks, the cinder blocks of the wall went wavy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now that's not supposed to happen. Okay, your mind really can't accept that when you see that. And so some of the people went running down the hall and stuff. So I was able to grab at least a large group. and get underneath all of our lab desks until it passed. And that wasn't so bad. The Northridge one was a lot worse. And yes, when it's all said and done, it's like the body releases. It could be all of a sudden you're shaking like crazy, you're in tears, something happens. And that's okay. We had too many aftershocks after that for months though, so that did not help. Um, but yes, it is really the focus on an emergency like that, not who we couldn't help, but who we could help. And that's where our mindset has to go for that. So thank you very much for that. Now, see everybody, this particular gentleman happens to know a great deal about emergencies, and he has come up with this absolutely beautiful little kit that could happen, that you can actually put together, but there's a lot more to it and there's stages. So, Ian, could you, before we leave, could you please tell the audience a little bit about this? Because I just love this. So, here we go.
Absolutely. So I just kind of came up with this concept. I can't remember why, but I've always referred to it as the lickety-split disaster kit. And so right now, any of you could, go to your pantry or wherever, grab a gallon bag and a quart bag. And in the gallon bag, you want to place at least one bottle of water, a snack of some kind, ideally a protein bar, what have you, right? And a flashlight. And if you've got that in the big bag, awesome. Like you're way ahead of everybody else, probably. In the smaller bag, this is where you would put your critical medications, toothbrush, toothpaste. I like plackers, toothpick, what have you. And that's where you put like anything that you touch daily that sits, in your bathroom goes in that bag. And then you take take the small bag, drop it into the gallon bag, and away you go. You have an instant lickety split disaster kit. Now, if you want to upgrade, right, you grab an old backpack or whatever we call this, a bug out bag or a go kit, and you'll be able to see there are multiple stages. I have seven of them, depending on, right. You've got to consider weather, you've got to consider geography. So you want a rotation of, change of clothes and what have you. Water is most critical. Food is next, right? You'd like to have some. So what I have is a wind up charging flashlight so that I will always have light and I can power a phone off of that. And that also happens to be a NOAA weather radio that can also charge with solar. And so, this kit could obviously become expansive if you can just at least walk out with water and food. And don't forget your pets, right? This is one of the critical things we learned from Katrina. People will not leave without their pets. So make sure you have your own mini kit for your pets and their medications and some food and treats because everybody's going to be stressed.
That's very true. And for those that even want to know more than that, you have something accessible that you're working on that you'll be able to release where they can start to understand more of how they want to build this kit. Like ever since the earthquakes, okay, I lived with a go bag.
Right.
That's it. You didn't go anywhere. The first thing you do is put together a go bag, and a lot larger than what you're talking about right now. I mean, that go bag had everything. I could live it off of it anywhere for months. But it is important to understand these things and your environment, and oh, definitely the pets, because I had my chrysoberyl, and poor thing, chrysoberyl started pulling out all the fur out of her tail
Mm.
from all the stress of it. So, yes, the animals go through some very serious stress under traumatic situations too. But I love the fact that now you guys already know, now you have something in your home that you can put the lickety split. Is that what we call it?
Yeah, lickety split disaster kit.
Lickety split
And you
disaster
you
kit.
and you can go out to lickety split disaster kit.com
Yes,
and
and we
learn more.
And we are going to put that in the description as soon as we hang up. So you'll have that information and you'll be able to follow Ian on LinkedIn. He is the CEO of Win Discipline. We did not get a chance to talk about that, but next month we do have holistic health on topic, and Ian will be returning with that, and we will be spending an hour with you. So you're not going to want to miss that. At the same time, we're bringing in a few other things here on YouTube, more about a breakdown on my book, Let's Be Clear. And so it is going to be entitled The Book, and you're going to get pieces of how to understand how to start to bring yourself back into that calm chapter by chapter. How about that, guys? You still can get it on Amazon and everywhere else, and I have the links for it. And then I have questions that have been asked of me because part of it, Ian, was like, what percentage of woo woo are we talking about? So I get a lot of those questions often because, yes, of course, I have spirit guides and I have angels and I have a whole bunch of stuff going on. And yes, does that impact how I see things and my visions and all this stuff? Of course it does. So I get some strange questions. And in the evening on Thursdays, I am going to take a moment and answer just a question at a time. That should be starting by next month at the latest. And next month, too, we're going to put a webinar together for you called The Breath Advantage Lead with Presence. And who'll be joining me will be Stephanie Bay from Germany. And you're not going to want to miss that either. And then, of course, in December, we have the fifth annual Faith, Hope, and Love Summit. This year it's going to be back partially live and partially pre-recorded this time. So December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So look for that. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, guys. And we're here to support you, always to support you in any particular area we can possibly imagine. And so it is about taking care of your whole being. It will always be about that. And we do try and uplift you in every aspect we can so you come back into yourself, into your heart, be much more loving and caring to yourself. And with that, you automatically emanate more light out into the world. So, with that, any last one word for the audience?
I mean, I think the sound of an earthquake is so unsettling. I just remember the cracking of the brick and thinking that the whole world was coming down around my ears. And so I know that we all out there have that feeling, whether it's digital or emotional or relational. And the key is you will get through this. Just do the next thing.
That and that's it. Focus on the next thing. That is perfect. A perfect way to leave it. Colleen, you have been wonderful just being our anchor with all this beautiful energy. Was there anything that you would like to share with the audience briefly?
Thank you so much. This was such an amazing episode. I got so many gems. I just want to say thank you to both of you, and I love the being present just emulates throughout our lives, and you guys gave us some really great examples today. So thank you.
Oh, well, always thank you, sweetheart, for being my amazing anchor in ways that a lot of people will never understand. She's like my little sister now, guys. Okay, so Ian, thank you so very much for being our guest today. We will definitely pick up a lot more next month. And everybody who has been here live and will see the replay. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming, and keep coming, keep subscribing, bring your friends. We live in a higher frequency here, so become part of the higher frequency tribe. And with that, I'm sending everybody off with love and kisses and many, many blessings.